Who doesn't love a good cooperative game? But sometimes some really great games get passed on. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, the top 10 best co-op games that are always ignored. Starting off at number 10 is Strange Brigade, a third-person adventure game that you can have up to 3 friends along with you for the ride. It's set in 1930s Egypt. It will make you think of Indiana Jones, but it's got some pretty interesting aspects to it. For one, it's got a narrator. I mean, it bears more than a passing resemblance to not only Tomb Raider and Uncharted, but even some more laborious games. There are puzzles, there are zombies, there is humor. I would liken it to an arcade game in a lot of ways, but it's also got really good, well-constructed, tight gunplay, and pulls a lot of different influences without overcomplicating itself. As a co-op, it's just got such variation throughout the course of the game. It's just really fun. I mean, even alone, it's worth it to play, but basically this type of game as a co-op really works. At number 9 is Vermintide II. Now, this is a game that is really well liked by all the people that like it, but it's one that doesn't come up a lot for whatever reason. It's a first-person melee medieval, well, free-for-all, I think is probably the best way to put it. It's super bloody, it's gory, it's wild, and honestly, it controls incredibly well. Like, this is one of those games that the melee combat is refined to such a perfect extent. I mean, a lot of people call this game Left 4 Dead plus swords, but I'm gonna go ahead and say I think that it's a little bit more complicated than that. A, the game is a lot harder than Left 4 Dead, at least in my opinion. But B, the fact that it's almost entirely melee-oriented creates completely different dynamics. It's got its own pretty specific level design that's very much Warhammer fantasy-oriented on account that's, well, what the game is set in. And I would call the game concept fleshed out a bit further than Left 4 Dead. That's not to say Left 4 Dead isn't an incredible game. It's just that they really leaned in on their original ideas rather than make something super derivative. Vermintide rules. Like, play Vermintide 2. If the description makes it sound good, like a melee co-op first-person free-for-all, it's probably something you'll like because they do it really well. At number 8 is Broforce, a game that just absolutely does everything it can to be an over-the-top, side-scrolling action game. You can blow everything up, and you should, because it's the most enjoyable experience. It's so satisfying to blow anything up in this game, and you're just constantly doing it. You have all these great different bro characters, by the way. You have ones that rely more on fists, ones that rely more on guns and explosives, and the game is very tongue-in-cheek. It goes out of its way to be very much like an 80s action movie that can't get enough of America. In fact, it's almost as though it's the licensed game for such a movie. However, I would say it's obviously a lot more flexible than games of that era. One of the big things you gotta know about it, though, is it's not an easy game. You die whenever you get hit. I mean, you can be raised by a partner, but that is indeed the dynamic. But the difficulty level is, in my opinion, not a bad thing. I like it, because this game, it's awesome. Like, play Broforce. It's fantastic. At number 7 is A Way Out, which is a game that got a lot of attention when it came out and really isn't discussed a whole lot anymore. But I think it does deserve the mention. It's just a really unique sort of cinematic sort of puzzle-solving experience. You play as one of 2 prisoners, which is escaping from prison, and I mean, it's really innovative, the way that they've set this game up. You've got so many different types of gameplay, and you're always using teamwork in all of them. Like, there's driving elements, there's fighting, there's stealth segments, and again, like, they always involve both of the people in some way. You cannot play this game one player, it has to be a 2-player experience, because it does not work otherwise. And that's part of, I think, why it works so well. They said, you know what, it's that, it's gotta be that. Let's design all the mechanics around this game, around the fact that it's definitely 2 people playing it. And they wrote a good story for it too. Like, it's really good as far as character development and getting you invested in what's going on. Truthfully, just a brilliant game. At number 6 is Darksiders Genesis, a game that came out last December that, I mean, it really should have gotten more attention than it got. It's a top-down action RPG hack and slash. It's maybe not quite as big in scale as the other Darksiders games. It's certainly a little less polished, but as far as gameplay, I mean, this is one of the best games, like, in this genre. Really, all the Darksiders are. It does take a marked difference in doing the top-down, as its perspective, but it really doesn't feel that different. And I say that despite the fact that it basically looks like Diablo. No, it really feels like Darksiders still. And that's, I think, a big compliment to the way that they've built that series around the gameplay conventions they have. It can't be overstated how good the combat is in this game and how worth it is to play, even if just for that. However, as far as I'm concerned, it's actually really well written and engaging as well. So, Darksiders Genesis, like, give it more attention. It deserved more attention. At number 5 is Alien Swarm, a tactical 4-player top-down shooter. Now, this game has the benefit of being free. It is just a game you can download right now, and you should. But it's not just that it's free, it also has a great map maker, and there's basically an infinite number of maps you could be playing. This is a game, in my opinion, that actually is a lot more fun, a lot bigger, at least potentially speaking, has a great community. And if you get bored with Alien Swarm, there is, of course, Alien Swarm Reactive Drop, which is more, and also free. With the original Alien Swarm, you're restricted to 4 people. You go into Reactive Drop and you get 8 people. Honestly, I don't know why it's free either, because they don't monetize it. It's just a really good game that's free. It will remind you of Contra, however, it's definitely its own beast. At number 4, it's BattleBlock Theater, a game that comes to us from the Behemoth, the creators of such great games as Alien Hominid, Castle Crashers, etc. I mean, really a fantastic dev, and this game is no exception. However, this game is not getting the attention that Castle Crashers did. Obviously, we'd put Castle Crashers on this list if it got ignored, but it really did not. I mean, basically, it's a comedy platform puzzler. You can play it 1 player, but it is definitely more fun with 2. And there's a large number of Behemoth conventions in this game. However, it's definitely unique. Like Alien Hominid is, of course, another platform game, but this is very different. It's closer to Meat Boy than Earthworm Jim in the way that Alien Hominid is kind of more like the latter than the former. But there are, of course, platforming conventions like Bosses as well, which are also really enjoyable. I think the reason this one got ignored is that it's a little bit more difficult to explain than any other Behemoth game. But that's primarily in its aesthetics. It's really not a complex game to get into, so maybe give it a spin. At number 3 is Sniper Elite 4, which is just a fantastic sniping game. As far as I'm concerned, basically the standard. If you're going to make a sniping game, this is the point of reference. There are elements of stealth in this game, elements of traditional gun and melee combat that you might see in a first-person shooter, with the addition of Mortal Kombat like X-Ray Pain, and just phenomenal shooting. We get tons of slow motion payoff too for being good at it, and whether you're clearing your way through a bunch of guys and just tearing the place up, or very carefully, sneakily getting yourself to the top of a building, setting up a shot, and ending it flawlessly, Sniper Elite 4 is just a fantastic experience. It's also just not talked about very much. We love Sniper Elite, and 4 is definitely the best one so far. At number 2 is Killing Floor 2, which came out in 2016, 7 years after the original. It is a 6-player first-person shooter, and it is glorious and insane. It's basically what happens if the events of the first game, where clones were unleashed on the UK, gets crazier. Like, there's a clone army that's pretty much unleashed on the entire European Union. And, I mean, that's pretty much the extent of the story. There's not a lot of story in the Killing Floor games, and it's understandable because the games are great. Like, mechanically speaking, they feel good, they're paced well, they're tight controls, and you basically have to take out tons and tons of enemies. That's the point. There's maybe a little bit more going on than the original Doom way back in the 90s, but not a lot. And that's fine. It's a great first-person shooter. It's got a lot of style, too, so it manages to still look good as far as I'm concerned. There has been a pretty fair amount of additions to sort of superfluous microtransactions, but that's fine. The game is still very worth playing, and as far as I'm concerned, should be bigger than it is. And finally, at number 1 is Risk of Rain 2, which is an extremely stylized roguelike third-person shooter where you choose a survivor, land on a planet, and have to survive it. The point is obviously, of course, to escape the planet eventually, but the thing you're really doing is fighting hordes of monsters. The best way to experience the game, in my opinion, is with some friends, because it's an experience that can be exploration oriented or insane combat. Things can change really quickly. And it also has its very own, very specific aesthetic that it's fun to spend time in. Like, it's one of those games where you're going to be commenting with your friends as you're playing with it. You're not just concentrating. Like, it's not the hardest game in the world, but it provides a lot of interesting experiences that have to mentally shift a lot. And that's something that I really like about it. It can absolutely be one of the most frenetic and insane games out there. And frankly, it's just a lot of fun. I enjoy the hell out of this game. You gonna give any of these a spin? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. And we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.